As a result of an absolutely just unnecessary and dangerous play, Trevor Lawrence exhibited clear signs of a traumatic brain injury with fencing and posturing before being taken off the field earlier in today's game against the Texans. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Dr. Brian Sutterer, and the goal on this channel is to help teach you more about the medical side of the sports world based on what we see on TV. And this was just completely uncalled for, completely dangerous, no place for this in the game, and a very clear sign of a traumatic brain injury or concussion for Trevor Lawrence based on the posturing fencing response that we saw on the field. Now, there were two different blows to Lawrence's head that could have caused this traumatic brain injury to occur. The first one was here, as we can see the Texans player come in. He basically raises up his left forearm. He's got this elbow brace on and just hits Lawrence square in the front of the head. What that's going to do is, of course, impart that direct force into the skull, into the brain, leading to possible disruption in those neurons. Everything that we see, symptoms, manifestation of a traumatic brain injury or concussion. But the other thing it's going to do is, you can see initially Lawrence's head is looking straight forward, but then as the forearm comes in, it's going to cause this sudden rotation where now his head does this 90-degree rotation off to that right side. That's going to put additional torsional or rotational stress, particularly down through the brainstem where some of these key structures live, that then lead to what we see on the field with that fencing posturing response. Then as this play continues, Lawrence goes down to the ground. We see the second impact come in as he strikes his head on the turf, probably at this point unconscious, unable to guard himself anyway. So we have that initial blow causing that rotational force through the brainstem and the brain, followed by the subsequent impact onto the turf, leading to everything that we're going to see with his concussion, traumatic brain injury. Now, it doesn't last very long here, but if you pay attention to Lawrence's left arm, as he gets hit, you're going to see it go into that extension posturing while his right arm is a little bit more flexed up towards him. This arm extended, this posturing position that we see is something referred to as the fencing response. So right there, we see that left arm is out straight. We see the right arm is flexed upwards towards him. And this opposite pattern of that one side being out in extension with the elbow straight, the arm raised up, the right side being up into flexion is that classic fencing response that we can see after a traumatic brain injury. This is one of the clear signs. It doesn't matter what your evaluation shows in the locker room. You see this on the field. Done. You've diagnosed concussion, traumatic brain injury. They're out of the game. No questions asked. It doesn't matter what your subsequent evaluation shows because this is an outward sign of an internal traumatic brain injury. But let's talk about why this happens. What is causing the brain to then make the limbs move in this way? Looking at our biodigital anatomy tool here at a cross-section of the brain, this top part is going to be the brain cortex, the outer part. We're then going to have the brain stem down here, which transitions into the spinal cord, and the cerebellum sitting here in the back side. There's groups of nerve cells, their origins called the nuclei, that sit particularly within the brainstem, and it is kind of the origin of that nerve to send out all those actions up into the brain, maybe down into the spinal cord to the nerves. And when these nuclei or these clusters of nerves fire, it allows different actions to occur within our body, from movement to respiration, etc. There's one specific group called the lateral vestibular nuclei that sits here in the brainstem that scientists, we kind of think, controls part of what we see with this fencing response. This LVN, this lateral vestibular nuclei, whenever it's activated, will send signals down to the rest of your nerves to cause excitatory response or activation of extension on the same side of the nuclei, because remember, everything is going to be left and right. So there's going to be a right LVN, there's going to be a left LVN. So activation of that left-sided lateral vestibular nuclei causes this excitatory response, which leads to that extension of the muscles, while then you get the contralateral opposite side flexion. And we think this harkens back to a primitive reflex we all have as newborns called the ATNR, asymmetric tonic neck reflex. Whenever you fall, if you're accidentally dropped, your cerebellum, this part in the back of your brain, is going to sense that. It's going to send these signals out to just reflexively extend that arm out to help guard and protect your fall. And so this is essentially what is being reactivated in the brain whenever you have those forces from the hit. So the hit comes in, those mechanical forces cause stretch, they cause activation of that lateral vestibular nuclei, sends out that excitatory signal to cause extension posturing, that rigid response on the same side, flexion on the opposite side, as a clear outward sign of an inward traumatic brain injury. Now, thankfully, Lawrence was able to be taken off the field just in the cart. They didn't have to put him in the stretcher. That implies that whenever they were evaluating him, they felt he was coherent, he was conscious enough to where he could appropriately answer their questions to clear his neck and not be as concerned about his cervical spine. We've seen this happen in a lot of guys in the NFL. Yes, there's some thought that that could correlate with the severity of the force, but not necessarily correlate with the recovery time in terms of when we might see Lawrence back or not back upcoming in the season. No reason just from what we see to expect he's going to be done for the year. Everything here depends on now his symptoms, any other associated injuries, and then how quickly he recovers. So that's it for the video, everybody. Thank you as always for watching. Let me know any questions or comments down below. And until next time, we'll see you later. Bye.